Welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to dive into one of the most thrilling and daring crime stories in the history of Mexico, about a man who rose from nothing to hold immense power in the underworld. From a boy who grew up in poverty, he became the kingpin of Mexico's largest drug empire, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán. Not only infamous for his ruthlessness, but he is also known for his astonishing prison escapes that left the world in shock. Join us as we explore the crime-filled life and unbelievable escape plots of El Chapo in today's video. The story begins in Sinaloa, a state located in northwestern Mexico, one of the 31 states of the country bordering the Gulf of California. To the northeast of the state lies a city called Badiraguato. The climate here is diverse, ranging from scorching, arid highlands to snow-covered forests. The temperature difference between regions can reach up to 50 degrees Celsius. Badiraguato is known as the cradle of Mexico's drug lords, a birthplace for many notorious smugglers. On April 4, 1957, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán Loera was born into a poor farming family in Badiraguato. Guzmán's family had many siblings. His hometown had vast agricultural lands, and most of the people there lived by growing poppies. Guzmán's father was one of those poppy farmers. However, the family still struggled financially. Several of Guzmán's siblings died from disease and hunger. When Guzmán was in the 3rd grade, due to his family's inability to pay school fees, he was forced to drop out and sell oranges to make a living. In 1972, at the age of 15, Guzmán began growing marijuana under his father's guidance. However, due to a conflict with his father, Guzmán was kicked out of the house and had to live with his grandfather. With a modest height of 1.68 meters, Guzmán earned the nickname El Chapo, which means the shorty. Guzmán did not want to live an ordinary life. From a young age, he had a burning desire to achieve greatness. Guzmán had a very skilled uncle named Pedro Avilés Pérez, who was the first drug lord to use airplanes to transport drugs into the United States. Guzmán often learned from his uncle, acquiring valuable knowledge about the drug trade. Being exposed to the underworld from a young age, Guzmán gradually nurtured the idea of getting rich through illegal means. He no longer wanted to live in poverty and boldly decided to embark on the drug trafficking path. Guzmán started working for a drug lord named Héctor Luis Palma Salazar. Very quickly, Guzmán was assigned to transport a shipment to the US-Mexico border. This was Guzmán's first time handling a drug shipment. He understood the rules. The meek would be ridden, and the weak would be bullied, so he used all means of brutality to achieve his goals. During transport, if anyone leaked information, Guzmán would eliminate them without hesitation. Conversely, those who obeyed and completed their tasks were generously rewarded. Thanks to his cunning and ruthlessness, Guzmán successfully completed his mission. Soon after, he proactively asked the drug lord to increase the volume of goods transported. At that time, anyone who knew Guzmán understood that deceiving or cooperating with his rivals would lead to a disastrous end. The largest drug trafficking organization in Mexico at the time was the Guadalajara Cartel, led by Felix Gallardo. This cartel controlled much of the drug market in Mexico and along the US-Mexico border. Guzmán's growing reputation in the drug trade caught Gallardo's attention. Guzmán was noticed by a senior cartel leader and was honored to become Gallardo's personal driver. Later, Gallardo entrusted Guzmán with managing all the cartel's drug transportation routes from Colombia to Mexico, including land, air, and sea routes. In the 1980s, Mexican drug cartels ramped up their smuggling activities. They continuously funneled drugs from Mexico into the US, infuriating the US government. The US Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, an agency under the U.S. Department of Justice tasked with combating illegal drug trafficking and use, planted an undercover agent named Enrique Camarena Salazar in the Guadalajara Cartel in Mexico. Agent Camarena successfully infiltrated the cartel's inner circle and gained the trust of its leaders. In November 1984, Camarena risked his life to send intelligence to the DEA. The Mexican military launched a surprise raid on one of the Guadalajara cartel's massive marijuana plantations. Gallardo was enraged by the betrayal. 3 months later, he ordered the brutal murder of Agent Camarena. Gallardo's audacious act enraged the U.S. government, which pressured Mexico to hunt down those involved. From then on, Gallardo went into hiding. During this period, the Guadalajara cartel fell into chaos due to power struggles. Guzmán seized this opportunity to take control of drug trafficking routes and recruit more loyal followers. In 1989, Gallardo was captured in a joint U.S.-Mexico operation, and the Guadalajara cartel officially disbanded. Even while in prison, Gallardo tried to manage the cartel from afar and broke the organization into smaller factions. Guzmán, along with Hector Luis Palma Salazar and Ismael El Mayo Zambada, formed the Sinaloa Cartel, controlling the U.S.-Mexico border and continuing to spread terror to this day. To expand his drug trafficking operations, Guzmán purchased numerous properties across Mexico to store drugs, weapons, and cash. He even had a tunnel dug under the U.S.-Mexico border, complete with rails to transport goods into the U.S. Not stopping there, Guzmán also set up a chili pepper processing factory and hid drugs in the cans. He bribed border inspectors so that the cans could easily be shipped by train into the U.S. Sometimes, Guzmán boldly used airplanes to transport drugs. With this audacious business model, the Sinaloa Cartel, led by Guzmán, quickly grew to become one of the largest drug trafficking organizations in Mexico. That same year, Guzmán's cartel clashed with another Mexican drug cartel, the Tijuana Cartel. This cartel was formed by the Arellano Felix brothers after the dissolution of the Guadalajara Cartel. Although Guzmán was furious, he wanted to resolve the conflict peacefully. He sent an emissary to negotiate with the Tijuana Cartel, but instead, the Tijuana Cartel brutally murdered his envoy and even slaughtered the man's entire family. The violence didn't stop there. The Tijuana Cartel sent another drug lord, Enrique Rafael Clavel Moreno, to seduce the wife of Hector Luis Palma Salazar, one of the founders of the Sinaloa Cartel. At that time, Palma was 40 years old and had 2 children. Enrique successfully lured Palma's wife into withdrawing $7 million from her husband's bank account. Shockingly, she complied with Enrique's demands. After securing the money, she took her 2 young children and fled with Enrique to a hotel. However, Enrique cruelly murdered Palma's wife at the hotel, beheading her and placing her head in a box, which he sent to Palma. A few days later, his 2 children were thrown off a bridge to their deaths. In the world of Mexican drug trafficking, there is an unwritten rule that no matter how brutal internal conflicts become, families of rivals are off limits. The Tijuana Cartel's actions enraged many people, including Guzmán, who was Palma's close ally. Guzmán was determined to avenge his friend's family. He began plotting the downfall of the Tijuana Cartel. Enrique Rafael Clavel Moreno was imprisoned for the murder of Palma's wife, and Guzmán and Palma sent assassins into the prison to execute him. However, the vendetta didn't end there. In 1992, the Tijuana Cartel kidnapped 6 of Guzmán's men and forced them to reveal his whereabouts. They then attempted to assassinate Guzmán with a bomb, but the plan failed. Naturally, Guzmán was well aware of the incident. With his ruthless nature, he wasn't going to sit idly by. Guzmán orchestrated a series of violent attacks on the Tijuana Cartel's senior members, resulting in numerous casualties. These serious incidents caught the attention of the Mexican police, who formed a special task force to investigate. However, by bribing local officials with $10 million, Guzmán successfully silenced them, and the investigation against him was swiftly dropped. With tensions at an all-time high, the two cartels continued engaging in shootouts and assassinations. The war raged on for half a year, claiming the lives of many lower-level members from both sides, though the top leaders remained unharmed. In May 1993, the Tijuana Cartel received word that Guzmán was at Guadalajara International Airport. They immediately dispatched 20 assassins to eliminate him. However, they mistakenly identified the wrong vehicle. When a white car passed by, they opened fire, killing the occupants on the spot. It was later revealed that the person in the car wasn't Guzmán, but Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo, a high-ranking figure in the Catholic Church in Mexico. Cardinal Ocampo was shot 14 times, and 6 others accompanying him were also killed. Although Guzmán wasn't in the car, he was indeed at the airport. When he heard gunshots, he realized he was being targeted, and with the help of his close men, he escaped to safety. Mexico is a predominantly Catholic country, with 89% of the population following the faith. The death of Cardinal Ocampo sent shockwaves across the nation. Although Guzmán didn't personally commit the act, he was indirectly responsible for the incident. The Mexican government launched an intense manhunt for him, offering a $5 million reward for information, leading to his capture, a staggering sum at the time. Guzmán's image and details were broadcast widely across the media, making him Mexico's most wanted criminal. After the incident, Guzmán realized he had to flee Mexico to avoid capture. Before going into hiding, he traveled to Mexico City to meet with an old friend. He gave his friend $200 million, asking him to take care of his family. Guzmán then fled to Guatemala, Mexico's neighboring country. He bribed a local official with $1.2 million for asylum. However, the official double-crossed him, informing the Mexican government and collecting the reward money. In June 1993, Guzmán was captured in Guatemala and extradited to Mexico 2 days later. He was sentenced to 20 years and 9 months in prison for drug trafficking and bribery. Guzmán is held at Altiplano Prison, a high-security facility in Almoloya de Juarez, Mexico, with a capacity of 1,000 prisoners. At the time of Guzmán's arrest, the drug cartel he had founded had become the largest in Mexico, controlling most of the drug trafficking routes across the US-Mexico border. Guzmán was highly skilled in managing his subordinates and was well liked by them, with many remaining fiercely loyal to him even after his imprisonment. They frequently visited him, bringing large amounts of cash. Every month, Guzmán spent significant sums bribing the prison warden and guards, turning them into his allies. Of course, some guards remained honest and resisted the bribes, but they didn't report Guzmán's actions. His cell was more like a private mansion, aside from the restricted freedom. Guzmán could freely host parties and enjoy entertainment within the prison. He continued to run his gang from afar and direct the activities of his men. In reality, Guzmán didn't want to escape, as he knew that once he did, he would face relentless pursuit from both the police and his enemies. Instead of living in constant fear outside, he preferred to enjoy life in prison, where he also had a chance for reduced sentencing over time. With his keen understanding of human psychology, Guzmán won over most people in the prison. He knew everyone's weaknesses and gave them what they needed. Soon, Guzmán became the prison's shadow kingpin. He even had his own mistress and controlled many of the guards. During his incarceration, Guzmán's close ally Palma was also captured and imprisoned alongside him, though Palma was later extradited to the US. In 2001, 8 years after Guzmán's arrest, due to his cartel's continued trafficking of drugs into the US, the US government requested Guzmán's extradition to stand trial in America. Guzmán knew that once he set foot in the US, his days of freedom would be over. Rather than waiting for doom, Guzmán decided to take a gamble and began plotting his escape. Although Guzmán frequently bribed the prison warden and guards, they only provided small favors, never daring to go so far as to help him escape. Guzmán turned to a prison laundry worker named Javier Camberos. Every evening, Javier would push a cart full of dirty bedsheets and blankets from the cells to the laundry. Guzmán bribed Javier to hide him in the laundry cart and wheeled him out of the prison. The prison was equipped with numerous surveillance cameras to prevent escapes. Guzmán bribed several guards, instructing them to disable key cameras at the time of his planned escape. Before the escape was carried out, nearly all the inmates in Guzmán's section were aware of his intentions, but they pretended not to know anything. On Friday, January 19, 2001, Guzmán set his escape plan in motion. That evening, as scheduled, Javier pushed a laundry cart to Guzmán's cell. Guzmán quickly climbed into the cart, hiding under the pile of dirty bedsheets. Thanks to his small stature, he could easily conceal himself without being noticed. Of course, even if someone had seen him, they would have pretended not to. Javier calmly pushed the cart with Guzmán out of the prison. This was the first time Javier had ever done something so bold, and he was extremely nervous, his heart racing. Along the way, Javier passed a few guards, but none of them seemed to notice anything unusual. The plan went off without a hitch. Guzmán escaped the prison, got into a car that had been prepared for him, and quickly fled the scene. Guzmán's escape sent shockwaves through the Mexican government. A large-scale investigation was launched at Altiplano prison. Eventually, it was revealed that 78 people had accepted bribes from Guzmán, including at least 15 prison guards who had helped him escape. Additionally, several local police officers had been bribed, deliberately delaying Guzmán's pursuit, allowing him to get away. It was estimated that Guzmán spent over $2.5 million bribing officials and guards to facilitate his successful escape. After fleeing, Guzmán seemingly disappeared from the world. Rumors spread that he had fled to a remote mountainous area where locals grew opium poppies. The farmers in the region were highly suspicious of outsiders and would raise the alarm at the first sign of anything unusual. This remote area provided the perfect hiding place for Guzmán. It was rumored that Guzmán had his own private army of at least 300 gunmen protecting him. These men constantly patrolled the mountains, searching for any potential threats. If they encountered anything suspicious, they would help Guzmán escape, and they were even ordered to shoot down any aircraft flying over the area. Guzmán moved like a ghost, and no one knew his exact whereabouts. When he went to a restaurant, his bodyguards would confiscate all the patrons' phones. After dining, they would pay everyone's bills and return the phones. During this period, Mexican authorities tried several times to ambush Guzmán at places he was known to frequent, but each attempt was futile. It seemed as though Guzmán could anticipate the police's every move, always escaping just before they arrived. To further expand his power, Guzmán built a massive drug trafficking network by land, sea, and air that spanned all of Mexico. By February 2014, after 13 years on the run, Guzmán had become a notorious name worldwide. He was regarded as the most powerful drug lord of all time. Interpol listed him among the world's most wanted criminals. The Mexican government received a tip that Guzmán would be visiting his daughter at a safe house in the coastal city of Mazatlan. They immediately launched a large-scale operation involving the Navy and Army. At 6:40 a.m., Guzmán was captured at a hotel. Later that afternoon, Guzmán was flown to Mexico City's International Airport. A large number of reporters had gathered after receiving the news. Guzmán was then transported on a Black Hawk helicopter to a federal prison, Centro Federal de Readaptación Social Number 1. A highly secure facility on the outskirts of Mexico City. This was one of the most heavily guarded prisons in Mexico. The prison was in a remote location, and entering it required passing through 15 security gates, each opening only after the previous one had been locked. The prison was equipped with extensive surveillance cameras, both inside and outside. Numerous armed guards continuously patrolled the area. After his capture, Guzmán was placed in a high-security, solitary confinement cell. Guzmán's cell was small and bare, containing only a single bed pushed up against the wall, a sink, and a toilet. A surveillance camera was installed in the cell to monitor Guzmán's every move, 24/7. To provide some privacy, a small partition was placed near the toilet. Due to his previous escape history, Guzmán was subject to strict supervision. He was not allowed to participate in outdoor activities, communicate with other inmates, or have contact with his family. Each month, Guzmán was only given $48 to purchase essential items. He was allowed just 1 hour a day to exercise in the yard. Meanwhile, the U.S. government continued pressuring Mexico to extradite Guzmán for trial, but Mexico refused. However, no one could have predicted that even while being held in such a heavily guarded prison, Guzmán was plotting yet another daring escape. Over a year after being imprisoned, on the evening of Saturday, July 11, 2015, the guards were routinely monitoring inmates through the surveillance cameras. The time displayed on the screen was 8:43 p.m. Guzmán was lying on his bed, occasionally watching TV or sleeping, and everything appeared normal. 7 minutes later, Guzmán pulled back his blanket and walked toward the bathroom. He walked around the cell for a bit, then approached the toilet, bending down as if inspecting something. He then returned to his bed to change his shoes. At 8:52 p.m., Guzmán sat on the toilet and took down a towel hanging on the partition. At 9:17 p.m., Guzmán disappeared from the surveillance camera. After 25 minutes, sensing something was wrong, the guards rushed to Guzmán's cell to check on him. When they opened the door, they were stunned by what they saw. Under the toilet was a large hole with a 50-centimeter diameter. Beside the hole was a concrete slab, and at the bottom was a 10-meter ladder leading down to a tunnel. The tunnel was 1.7 meters tall and 75 centimeters wide, equipped with lighting, construction materials, oxygen tanks, and other necessary tools. A motorcycle was found inside the tunnel, likely used to transport construction materials. The tunnel stretched approximately 1.5 kilometers and led to an abandoned house. Inside the house, the floor was covered with sand and various tools were scattered about. Near the tunnel's entrance, investigators found a wheelbarrow used to carry dirt and debris. It was clear that this was a large-scale underground operation that required considerable time and effort to complete. Guzmán had obviously received help from the outside. Investigations revealed that after Guzmán's capture, his family had quietly begun planning his rescue. Knowing the prison was heavily guarded, they bribed a prison guard to smuggle in a wristwatch with a GPS tracking device for Guzmán, allowing them to pinpoint his exact location inside the prison. They purchased a plot of land near the prison and built a house on it. Since the area was under construction, the frequent transport of dirt and machinery didn't raise any suspicion. To ensure Guzmán could move easily through the tunnel, they designed it with a height of 1.7 meters, just enough for him to walk comfortably. During the digging process, Guzmán could hear noises coming from below. Naturally, the patrolling guards also heard strange sounds, but since they had been bribed, they turned a blind eye. After a full year of digging, the tunnel was finally completed. As soon as Guzmán's escape was discovered, the entire prison was locked down, and no one was allowed in or out. Helicopters were deployed to search for him from the air. The Mexican government also tightened security at all airports and seaports to prevent him from fleeing the country. Guzmán's second daring escape shocked the world. The second escape left the global public in disbelief, and many began to question the Mexican government's competence. 2 days after Guzmán's escape, he was still missing. The Mexican government launched a large-scale purge within its institutions, arresting and prosecuting numerous corrupt officials. At a press conference, they announced a reward of $3.8 million for anyone providing information leading to Guzmán's capture. After 2 successful escapes, Guzmán became even more arrogant and reckless. In 2012, Mexican actress Kate del Castillo wrote a letter expressing her admiration for Guzmán. When he learned about it, Guzmán contacted Kate and expressed his desire to create a movie about his life. American actor Sean Penn, after hearing the story from friends, traveled to Mexico several times to meet Guzmán. Both wanted to interview him, and Guzmán agreed. In October 2015, Kate and Sean Penn had a 7-hour meeting with Guzmán at a secret hideout. The Mexican government discovered the meeting and raided Guzmán's hideout. However, Guzmán anticipated the raid and narrowly escaped once again. But after this fateful encounter, Guzmán's whereabouts were exposed. 3 months later, Mexico and the U.S. launched Operation Black Swan, deploying elite forces from the Mexican Navy, Army, and Federal Police to capture Guzmán. They surrounded the Sinaloa Cartel stronghold in Los Mochis, a coastal city in Sinaloa. A fierce battle ensued between security forces and Guzmán's men. Once again, Guzmán attempted to flee through a secret 1.5-kilometer tunnel. He hijacked a car near the tunnel's exit and drove 20 kilometers south before being intercepted by special forces. Cornered, Guzmán tried his old trick of offering a hefty bribe to the police, but this time he failed. According to intelligence, about 40 heavily armed cartel members were on their way to rescue Guzmán. The special forces quickly took him to a nearby motel to await reinforcements. Guzmán was soon escorted by 11 units of the Mexican Navy. During Operation Black Swan, 5 cartel members were killed, 6 were arrested, and 1 Marine was injured. After Guzmán's capture, Mexico's president held a press conference to announce the victory. Several countries congratulated Mexico on this achievement. On January 19, 2017, Guzmán was extradited to the U.S. He was placed in the most secure section of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Manhattan, New York, under 24/7 armed surveillance. On November 5, 2018, Guzmán's trial began at the federal court in New York. He faced 10 charges, including drug trafficking, illegal possession of firearms, money laundering, and more. The identities of the jurors were kept secret for their safety. After deliberation, the jury reached a final verdict. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán Loera was sentenced to life in prison plus 35 years and ordered to forfeit $12.6 billion in assets. Guzmán was sent to ADX Florence, located in Florence, Colorado, to serve his sentence. ADX Florence is the highest security federal prison in the United States. As of now, it holds around 336 inmates, each kept in solitary confinement with no interaction allowed between prisoners. The walls of the cells are reinforced concrete, designed to prevent any escape attempts. Inmates are only allowed out of their cells for 1 hour a day for exercise. The entire facility is under 24/7 surveillance by fully armed guards. The life of Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, from a poor boy to a notorious crime lord, is marked by violence, crime, and incredible escapes. Yet, despite his power and ruthlessness, he ultimately paid the price. With a life sentence and complete isolation, the once powerful Kingpin is now a shadow of his former self, held in the most secure prison in the US, with no possibility of escape. If this story piqued your interest and you want to explore more mysteries and powerful figures from the underworld, don't forget to like or share and subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you many more thrilling and surprising stories. See you in the next video. Goodbye.